AI is no longer just a buzzword in beauty. It's here and it's working behind the scenes in product development. From generating starter formulas to scanning for compliance and even reverse engineering your favorite skincare, the tools are getting smarter, faster, and more embedded in how we formulate. But with all this progress comes an important question. How do we use AI without losing the craft of formulation? Because formulation has always been part science, part intuition. It's the texture that you tweak over months, the surprising combination that you stumble across in the lab, the creative spark that can't always be explained in data points. So what does it mean to bring algorithms into this space? And can technology really support the process without flattening it? So this week, we're exploring how AI is shaping the future of cosmetic formulation. Is it a co-pilot or a shortcut? An enabler or a disruptor? And most of all, how can we keep innovation human, even when the tools that we use are not? Welcome to Green Beauty Conversations, in which I challenge the beauty industry to become sustainable, champion independent and green beauty, and encourage you to join me in making beauty better. I'm your host, Lorraine Dallmeier. I'm a chartered environmentalist, biologist, and the CEO of award-winning online organic cosmetic formulation school, Formula Botanica. We have tens of thousands of students in over 190 countries around the world who study with us to become organic beauty formulators and entrepreneurs. Visit our website at formulabotanica.com to try our free online formulation course. And if you want to be the first person to know what's happening in green beauty, make sure you subscribe to this podcast in your favorite podcast app. So in today's episode, I'm joined by Hejab Malik, the co-founder of Potion.ai, a San Francisco-based technology company streamlining beauty product development through artificial intelligence. With a background in applying AI across industries and a deep focus on beauty R&D, Hejab has helped develop a platform of cutting-edge tools that support workflows like ingredient research, formulation, and compliance. Today, Potion.ai serves over 10,000 beauty R&D professionals worldwide, from indie formulators to major brands. And podcast listeners can get an exclusive 10% off a Potion subscription using the code Formula Botanica. Hi, Hejab. Can you please introduce yourself for our listeners?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Hejab. I'm one of the co-founders at Potion.ai. We're a technology company kind of working at the intersection of AI and beauty product development.
Amazing. Well, I can't wait to hear all about it. And we're going to obviously unpick this in this interview. So tell me a little bit more about Potion.ai. What is it? Why did you start it?
Yeah, so Potion actually has kind of an interesting backstory. Several years ago, my co-founders and I set out to launch our own skincare brand. And our idea was to make it a tech-powered brand where all the formulations were kind of based on data that we were aggregating, on the internet. And so we kind of created this formulation engine in-house where you could input a product brief and it would suggest a starter INCI list based on, successful products on the market, the claims that we were trying to make, et cetera. So, we did get all the way to almost launching 10,000 units of our first moisturizer right before COVID hit. And so that kind of put us at this crossroads where, we were like, okay, are we going to be able to sell these units, or do we need, how do we make the business work? And we had been working with a cosmetic chemist, of course, to actually make the paper formulas we had put together in the lab. And, he kind of shared with us that what we had done had already helped automate a lot of his upfront workflow. And through working with him, we had discovered a lot of inefficiencies in the product development process already, like getting supplier documentation, making sure we were on top of regulatory and compliance, generating the correct INCI list. Like there were just a lot of bottlenecks that before we tried to start that brand, we did not know existed. And so it kind of felt like a ripe time to just see if we could, provide our technology to people who already make products all the time, like contract manufacturers and brands that are already out there. And now we're here. So that was kind of the original story and pivot that led to the Potion platform today.
How did that feel when in that moment you suddenly realized that the technology that you'd created might be even more valuable than the brand that you were building?
I think it was kind of mixed feelings because we were really excited to, launch that brand, and we had spent a couple of years working on it. So it was definitely bittersweet, but I think being able to see people really improve their workflows and increase efficiency and enjoy their work more just through these automations and streamlining the process, I would say is definitely more rewarding at this point.
It's not a standard way of starting a beauty brand, I have to say. I don't know many people who start a beauty brand and build all the tech around it at the same time. What was your background that led you to this?
Yeah, so my background was in product design. So, I studied design in school, and at that time I was very focused on building, our brand. So, who's our target audience? What does our brand universe look like and feel like? We had a editorial side to the brand as well. But really, it's my co-founder, Alex, who kind of brought the brains to the operation. So he has a PhD in applied math and had been studying deep learning. He'd been working in industry for a few years. And, we kind of came up with this idea that what was going on in pharma with molecular design, could you apply that, at a formulation level in an adjacent industry? And so that kind of got him really excited about experimenting with that concept. And we were like, okay, well, the best way to try this out is try to launch our own brand, or at least that's what we thought at the time. So that's kind of how that came together.
It's very clever. And, from something great came something even better by the sounds of things. Can you talk us through what it's like when you join Potion AI? So there'll be a lot of formulators listening to this, a lot of beauty brand founders. They're thinking, what does this look like? Can you describe it for us?
Yeah. So Potion today is basically a web-based application. So you go on our website, open it up, make an account. It's kind of just a tab in your browser, but it is an entire platform now. And we have a whole suite of tools, which, we can get into in more detail throughout our conversation. But essentially, we have a few tools that we launched at InCause in 2024, I believe. And that was an AI-powered ingredient search engine and what we call the deformulator. And those tools, when you log in, you can immediately try out. You get a 7-day trial for free, and then you have various, plans that you can upgrade to access more features. But just the search engine itself is free forever. So that is something that is just available to use, even if you don't want to, take advantage of any of the other tools that we've built.
How does the search engine work? What does it do?
Basically lets you, research ingredients in natural language. So if you think of traditional ingredient discovery, it's quite manual in the sense that you're going on a bunch of different websites. You probably have a lot of browser tabs open, publications, articles, things like that. And it can be quite cumbersome. So our idea was to make the interaction a bit more modern, maybe more similar to what people are now used to with some of these generalized AI tools like ChatGPT and Claude, where you can kind of just type what you're thinking and it'll give you a response. And so we took that concept and applied it to ingredient search and discovery. And rather than just giving you a result that's just information from the internet, it is operating on a very curated data set of just cosmetic raw materials.
And where did you get that data set from?
So that data set is both a mix of public and private. So the public data comes just from publicly listed ingredients that are available online. And we only take, supplier trade name, INCI, just the descriptions that they kind of publish everywhere. And then there is now, some private data in the sense that suppliers have started to directly partner with us and basically inject even more data into the search engine so that when a formulator is, searching for an ingredient, that supplier, if they have a good fit, is more likely to kind of show up as a hit in the search engine.
So I always ask this question of people who build data sets because it always fascinates me because the beauty industry is so traditionally opaque, right? Mm-hmm. They don't like opening the doors. They don't want you to see what they're up to. They don't even like telling you really what's in their formulation. How hard was it to get some of these companies to share information with you?
Yeah, so with suppliers, it was not that difficult because, suppliers do believe in sales and marketing, right? So they want you to see their ingredient. They want to have it in as many places as possible. So that part was definitely the least challenging. I would say the most challenging was aggregating the data set on which we've trained some of our other models that power the deformulator, our virtual formulation tool, some of those more complex AI models. And that took several years and a lot of, manual data indexing, again, both from public and private sources. So we use publicly available data on like how to formulate, what is a moisturizer, what are all the different phases, what functional ingredients go into it, and then also a mix of private data that some of it we built in-house, the data sets. So, we actually worked with cosmetic chemists to put together data sets that we could use to train on. And then in the past, we've had enterprise engagements with companies where in exchange for us building a custom model for them, they allowed us to use some portion of their data to train our models as well. So that's kind of how it all came together, but definitely a journey. And then it took several years.
I can imagine. I totally can. So you've got the search engine. What other tools have you got in Potion AI?
So our other, I would say, pretty popular tool is the deformulator. That essentially helps with the first step of the product development process, right? So most of the time when you set out to create a product, you have some sort of product brief, and usually it comes with at least one or more benchmark products. And what a cosmetic chemist will do to start is just deconstruct that benchmark to figure out what ingredients might be inside at what concentrations, where's the 1% line, what actual commercial trade names might be used to achieve the performance and texture of that product. And so essentially what we've done is automated that process quite a bit so that you can kind of get to the answers faster. So rather than spending a few hours decoding a product, you can do it in just a few minutes. And as you can imagine, that's gained a lot of popularity where when people get a product brief, they usually come to Potion to figure out, what's going on with their benchmark.
How on earth did you put that together? Because, we teach reverse formulation in our advanced diploma here at Formula Botanica, and it takes the students 8 modules until they're ready to do that. So it must have been a lot of effort putting that together that you can now automate that.
Yeah, it really came just from user feedback. So we talked to hundreds of cosmetic chemists all the time, and this just kept coming up over and over again where they were all doing this kind of specific workflow. And we kind of saw it as an interesting data problem, right? Because you're kind of just decoding. You have all the pieces. You just need to figure out how to put them together. And so that's how we came up with it. And then again, actually bringing it to life with it being able to, suggest concentration ranges or detect ingredients was just based off of the data set that we had built and trained.
Wow. Well, we'll come back to the deformulator because I have quite a few questions about it, but I just want to figure out what else you have in there. So you've got the search engine, you've got the deformulator. Is there anything else, any other tools?
Yeah. So those 2 tools have been around since InCause in 2024. And we recently launched what we're calling, our private cloud, which essentially expands the feature set to where you can fully end-to-end manage your product development workflow. So rather than just search and discovery or like a point solution like the deformulator, you can, manage your own ingredient library and documentation. That also has a lot of AI automations that help you parse through PDFs and things like that. And then we have a full formulation module. So that's kind of like classic formulation software for managing your trials, batches, etc. And then
what does that look like? Sorry, just to interject. What does that look like? Do you just is it AI driven where you're just talking to the AI to help you formulate?
So it's a little bit of traditional software with some AI features on top. So think of your classic formulation module where you have, your formulation table, you can change your batch size, you have your formula cost, you're selecting your ingredients, exporting QQs, ILs, etc. And then we sort of have this AI co-pilot on the side that you can chat with where you can ask for feedback, suggestions, troubleshooting. And so it kind of balances, the help of AI while allowing the formulator to still be the driver.
Amazing. Sorry, I interrupted you there. You were about to tell me about one other feature, I think, before I move on to my next question.
Yeah. So the last one is regulatory and compliance. So that has been a consistent theme since we've been in the industry. People really struggle with it. It's nuanced. It's constantly changing. There's a lot of data and it's complex, which, the same things that make it annoying are also what make it an interesting problem to apply AI to. So that's kind of been our focus over the last several months is creating this compliance module where you can screen raw materials and formulas against retailer standards, country standards, customer restriction lists, and things like that, just to kind of remove the admin work from that process and just let the regulatory professional or formulator apply their judgment.
Yeah, there's a whole wealth of tools by the sounds of things in Potion AI. Who's it for? Who are you targeting with it?
So Basically, I would say the majority of our user base are R&D professionals, so that there is a range from, all the way from students and independent chemists to small labs. And then I would say most of the companies that are really taking advantage of the more advanced premium features I mentioned are contract manufacturers and brands. So that's kind of what the makeup of the user base looks like today.
Yeah. And how many users have you got on the platform right now?
So there's about 10,000. So it's grown quite a bit. And that does include both free, basically that includes everyone on all tiers. So whether you're a free user, premium, enterprise.
Well, congratulations. 10,000 is not a small number. So it sounds like Potion's doing very well. So let's talk a little bit about AI in formulation. How do you view those two concepts together? Can AI ever replace the formulator?
Yeah, so we get this question a lot. I think there's this saying that I've been seeing like going around a lot that is, says AI won't replace you, but someone using AI will. And I think that is probably true in the sense that, you kind of see this uptick in how much efficiency people are starting to drive for themselves, even just by using things like ChatGPT every day to like draft emails or help brainstorm and things like that. So our perspective is augment, not replace. So how can AI, be assistive? How can it help take care of workflows that maybe aren't even enjoyable for you in the first place? And if you think about the strengths and weaknesses of AI, I do think there's like a happy balance where AI is really good at things like, analyzing large data sets or pattern recognition, or, automation, versus humans are really good at things like batching a sample of a product or evaluating sensorials or the emotional intelligence that it takes to translate a product brief into an actual physical good. So I think that when you marry those two things together, that's where you can really see the magic of AI happen. So we definitely don't believe in, the replacement aspect, but definitely think everyone should leverage it and take advantage of it how they see fit, and that it'll lead to increased productivity and hopefully increased innovation.
Yeah, I totally get it. What would you recommend to someone who's never used AI before, who's a formulator? Where should they start?
I think just to get comfortable, even just asking ChatGPT general chemical knowledge questions. Like, I know a lot of formulators who are very skeptical to start. And so what they started doing was, it's like they're working on something and they would ask like, can you remind me if this emulsifier is polar or non-polar? And then it can give you an answer. And it's like, oh, that's actually kind of helpful. And I didn't have to go look that up. So I don't think that you have to develop like a huge reliance on it in that, you're just having it generate an entire formula and you have no input. I think it's more like, where are those little pieces and gaps? We're getting a quick answer, or, having a chemically intelligent tool or things like that could kind of just help you focus on creativity and innovation and let the AI take care of some of the other stuff.
Okay. Well, let's talk about your deformulator tool, because I'm fascinated by this. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we teach this skill at Formula Botanica as well. So your deformulator reverse engineers products based on their inky lists. Mm-hmm. And do you think there's any chance that might make copycat culture even easier in the beauty industry?
I don't know, because what we discovered when we, interviewed hundreds of cosmetic chemists was that everyone has this kind of averse reaction to the term reverse engineering or dupes, which makes sense. But at the same time, the product development process has this critical step in it where when you receive a brief and a benchmark, the first thing you're doing is figuring out how that benchmark works. And so from our perspective, maybe it makes it like a little easier to dupe something, but you still need a cosmetic chemist involved to take the trial to the finish line and decide what ingredients they actually want to use and everything like that. So I don't think that it is necessarily, it's not like you can put something in and spit out a direct copycat, ship it to market the next day, And so I don't know. I think it's an interesting question actually for the industry at large, which is like, how do we feel about this? Because you can't really ignore that everyone's doing it. But most of the time what we've seen is, at least when it comes to benchmark evaluation, the intent behind doing that is to satisfy the client's product brief, right? So yes, they have a benchmark, but then they probably have 50 other requirements. Like, okay, I want it to be like this product, but it has to be natural and all the ingredients have to be, Leaping Bunny certified. And I don't want to use these 3 inkies, and this has to be compliant in the EU and the UK and Canada, right? And so those, the constraints that vary per customer can really drive the differences in the end results of the product. So that's kind of what we see happening. We don't really see any of our customers like using it for that purpose, but yeah, I see why it's a topic.
So do you think we risk creating a generation of formulators who maybe rely on tools and AI and algorithms instead of developing that formulation expertise for themselves?
I think that it's possible, but I do think if we focus on the same things that are part of an education, like developing a love of learning and critical thinking skills, then I think you can avoid that. But at the same time, I do think this is something we're all kind of collectively trying to figure out. Like I saw, this study come out about how using ChatGPT all the time, kind of impacts your critical thinking skills. And, that's new data, which is interesting. And so, I think we'll just have to see. I think probably applying like limitations on how it can be used and, how different educators decide to do that could be a solution. Or, I could see a future in which it is a critical part of almost everything you do. And then just the way that we learn and the way that we formulate is just different. And it's unfamiliar and we haven't seen anything like it before, right? So imagine if a cosmetic course doesn't have a reverse engineering module because you can already do that using AI. What will that be replaced with? What would you want to teach those students in place of that? So I think, it'd be interesting to see what happens.
Definitely. So I read somewhere online that Potion AI also helps with predicting stability and compatibility. Is that correct? Did I get that right?
When we first started out, we did build custom stability prediction models for several customers. We actually no longer, offer that at the moment. Now you can use our, formulation copilot to ask questions about potential stability issues. And the reason for all of that is what we discovered was that the sort of human and AI model interaction was quite problematic because when you're using AI to predict stability, you still have to make the decision of, are you going to trust the yes or no that it gives? So if it says this is not stable, are you just not going to make it? And are you not going to put it through stability? And then how does that impact innovation? So it kind of, I think in theory is possible. And we did have great accuracy rates in terms of the actual predictions. But I think that sort of human and AI interaction piece is still something that needs to be resolved. So yeah, short answer is like we have done that in the past, but we're not really focused on it today.
Yeah, that was going to be my exact question. How important is physical testing still then alongside all of that? But you just answered that beautifully. I guess time will tell with some of these tools. What's one thing that you wish people understood a little bit better about AI, particularly when it comes to formulation?
I think it would just be that piece about leveraging it, and to achieve that magic balance of, tasks that you want to do versus tasks that you want to kind of delegate to these tools and kind of aspiring to that happy medium. So I think there's still a lot of skepticism and resistance in the industry, which is normal. I think when any new technological revolution has come out, that happens. There's a lot of resistance at first. People get used to it over time, and then it just becomes a part of your life. And so I think what's interesting is like we're just going through that live right now, and it's faster than it's ever been before. It's kind of like, it's here, it's happening, and how are you going to react to it? And so I think that's what I would leave the viewers with is, I do think that leveraging it and taking advantage of it is something to be open-minded to.
Yeah, you're right, though. It is going incredibly fast. And I'm sure some people feel like it's just sort of overwhelmed them or sort of almost bypassed them. So looking ahead, what's your long-term vision for AI in beauty? What do you see happening in the coming 5 to 10 years? Maybe that's too far into the future, given how fast things are going, maybe even into the next year.
Yeah, I think our plan is to just continue building tools to help streamline some of the bottlenecks that exist in the product development process. There's still a lot of work to do. I think what's interesting about this industry is that some aspects are still quite antiquated, right? So if you think even about how communication happens between suppliers and customers, it's like all through PDFs, right? So you're just kind of still parsing through documents, even the regulatory landscape, quite complex. You have to kind of analyze a lot of data to figure out what's going on. And so I think that in some ways, the behind the scenes part of beauty will take some time to kind of catch up. But then, in terms of consumer facing stuff, you're already seeing it totally fly, right? So even just like social listening, trends analysis, things like that, you can kind of already leverage big data sets to look at that stuff. But I guess it remains to be seen. But I definitely think even in a year, we'll see people, working differently in the space.
Well, watch this space, and I'm sure Potion AI will be there leading the way. So if people want to learn more about the tool that you've created, where can they find out more about you and about Potion AI?
Yeah, so you can just visit our website, potion.ai, which kind of gives you a preview of what we're all about, some of the tools that we offer. We're also decently active on LinkedIn, so we post some fun educational content on there and are pretty active. So yeah, you can find us online in those two places. And then you can always email hello@potion.ai if you are curious, have any questions or feedback or suggestions, anything like that. We're very, very available.
Amazing. We will include those links in the show notes. And you have a special discount code for listeners as well, don't you?
Yes. So if you're listening to this and you're interested in trying out a Potion subscription, you can use the code Formula Botanica to get 10% off.
Amazing. What a generous gift. Thank you very much. And thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. I would love to hear your thoughts on this episode. How do you feel about AI in formulation? Is this the future? Is it a useful tool? Or is it a shortcut that you don't want? Leave us a comment on our social channels, as both the Formula Botanica team and I love hearing from you. And if you want to hear more episodes about the topics we discussed today, please do delve back into the podcast archives. So some great examples include episode 245, in which I interviewed Abdu Kane of Inflows.ai about the different ways that their tool is supporting formulators and the cosmetics industry. Or listen to episode 184, in which I asked ChatGPT to formulate for me. That one was very entertaining because it didn't go quite to plan. There's a wealth of information in our old episodes, and I do encourage you to go back and listen to them. Thank you for joining Hejab and I for this latest episode of Green Beauty Conversations. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do leave us a 5-star review so that other people can enjoy these conversations too. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever your favorite podcast app is, and stay tuned for the next episode. Follow Formula Botanica at Formula Botanica on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, LinkedIn. We're everywhere. And come and give me a follow at Lorraine Dallmeier on Instagram and LinkedIn. Visit our website at formulabotanica.com and sign up for our free online formulation course today.